Also, I think it's proof that you can go from one identity to almost like another one.
Growing up in Oxford, I definitely felt very much an outsider from my earliest years.
I have never felt more lost in my life. I think a lot of people kind of misunderstand it as wishful thinking. Can you please tell us why that's a myth? Because obviously you are such an expert on manifestation, and it's why I fell in love with your work. So we just need to start right there, I feel like.
I think that honestly is always a good place to start, because often when you hear the term manifesting, a lot of people can really roll their eyes at it. And I understand why. And it's because there is this misconception, like you say, that it is just about wishful thinking or positive thinking, or that it's really a bit woo or just about spirituality. And actually, it's really none of those things. And the way that I kind of came to this understanding was that when I first discovered manifesting, I kind of immersed myself in self-development as a whole. So I wasn't necessarily looking just at manifestation, but I was looking and reading and learning from all the great thinkers and philosophers and speakers. And what I realized was that everybody was talking about the same idea, which is that you can use the power of your mind to change the reality you experience, and how important that was. And what I came to understand was that it really wasn't just sort of a ritual or something that you did. Manifestation was a whole mindset. It was a way of living. And I realized that actually it incorporated so much more than positive thinking or the law of attraction. You know, a lot of people know about the law of attraction, but that's just one part of it. And I'm sure we can talk about it later. But actually manifesting is at its core about self-worth. It's about believing you are worthy of receiving. It's then about taking aligned action. It's about stepping outside your comfort zone. It's about showing up as the person that you want to become. It's about gratitude. You know, that's another big element of manifestation that often gets completely missed. People think that manifesting is about more, but actually it's about making the life that you already have feel as good as possible. So, I mean, there's so much to the practice that goes way beyond just sitting and waiting and wishing for something to happen.
There's so much in there that I love about what you just said. And I want to dive into like each piece, and then also, of course, like your 7-step process, yes, which is what you're known for. But the one thing that really stuck with me from your work is the gratitude element, okay? Because I remember there was a portion in your book, like your first book, where you talked about, I think it was like your home that you weren't like 100% happy with, and you were like excited to like get to the next thing, but then you kind of had to like be grateful for where you were in order to be able to like manifest something better, essentially. And it's funny, when I was reading your book, we were in the midst of like our visa process to the US, and I felt like I was like reading something about me, you know, because I was like, I could so deeply relate, where I was like so desperate to get my visa and move. But at the same time, I was like, okay, like I can't just be like sitting here and like bitching about the fact that like I'm so unhappy where I am, when like I can't control this situation. And like the more negative you are, I feel like the more of that you attract. So can you get into the gratitude piece?
Yes. So I really love this piece. Oh my God, I could talk about this for so long. So please do stop me. But, you know, I think essentially, you know, let's start with just really defining what gratitude is. So gratitude is a feeling of appreciation. And when we have gratitude for the things in our life, for the things that we are, for who we are, for, you know, the greater things in the universe that we can be grateful for, we kind of sit in this really abundant mindset. And an abundant mindset is one where we believe that there is enough love, success, money, joy to go around for everyone. And my mum, who's Iraqi, both my parents are Iraqi. My mum used to say this phrase in Arabic to me, which really describes this step in my book, which is step 5, embrace gratitude, so perfectly. And what she used to say was, for every thanks you give, you get 1,000 in return.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's so beautiful. And I really love it. And I think it's similar to, you know, that other quote, which a lot of people will know, which is a grateful heart is a magnet for miracles. And so when we're in an abundant mindset, when we're thankful for all that we have, when we recognize what we have around us, we're actually so much more able to keep attracting more of it back to us. And I think that's because the opposite of that is a scarcity mindset. And a scarcity mindset is where we sit in this place of lack. It's this idea that there's not enough to go around. And we are actually just focusing on all the things that we lack and the things that we are not. And I think that the mindset shift is so important because, you know, when we're constantly thinking about, you know, and I used to be very much like this, like everything that I didn't have, comparing myself to other people and what they had, constantly thinking that I'd find happiness when I had something. So for example, when you were talking about the visa, thinking, oh God, you know, things will just be so much easier and I'll be so much happier when I get my visa and when I've moved, you know. So I think it's really about understanding that there's this sweet spot, and I call it in the book the manifesting sweet spot, which is knowing what you want whilst being entirely grateful for all that you already have. Mm-hmm. And that's where the magic really happens, because if we are able to have goals, like we need goals to keep us motivated and to work towards something for our mental health, goals are so important. But I've put a disclaimer on manifesting now, which is that manifesting your goals won't make you happy. You know, you won't be happy when you get that promotion. You won't feel validated when you get that partner. You know, you should actually be focusing on creating those feelings within yourself now. When you get those things, feel proud of yourself. They're great, but don't rely on them to make you happy. And when you can do that, when you can master that and you can actually start to be grateful for the journey, you actually allow things to kind of flow effortlessly. And that's when the universe really starts working for you and things just seem to like come into alignment. And it's important to remind people of this because I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make with manifesting is that they become really obsessed with their goals. And that obsession really quickly turns to desperation. And desperation comes from fear and doubt. And step 2 of my manifesting process is remove fear and doubt, because we cannot manifest when we have these blocks in our way, which is, you know, limiting beliefs, insecurities, or a doubt that the universe can provide to us. So when we're obsessed with our goals and we're turning that into desperation, we're coming into this kind of quite low vibrational energy that really comes from a place of, I don't believe it's really coming for me, or I'm fearful that it won't happen. Mm-hmm. And that is all keeping you blocked from receiving. Whereas when we can step into this feeling of, I know what I want, but I'm actually going to enjoy the journey that gets me there. We're not gripping with this kind of like desperate energy. We're allowing things to flow. And I often describe it like when you're putting your seatbelt on in a car, you know, if you pull too hard, it gets stuck. You have to like ease it in gently and give it space to like do its thing. And that's what manifesting is like.
I also think that there's something so beautiful about that mindset of kind of enjoying the journey, because oftentimes I think like, even like, let's set manifestation aside, right? Like we all have these like goals, right? Like say it's like a business goal and you're just working towards that goal, and then you get to the goal and then you like look back on where you were and it's almost like, oh yeah, the good old days. You know what I mean? But like you didn't enjoy the good old days when you were in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, I remember really early on in my journey when I started my career, someone said to me, enjoy this bit. This is the best bit, like the first client, the first piece of press, the first win. You know, those firsts are so incredible. And I really believe that to be true.
Oh, 100%. And I think like, I don't know, it allows you to also not be as jaded, you know, because you're like, kind of enjoying every step in the process. And, you know, it's funny, I was with someone and they asked me, they were like, what was like a challenge or something that like you really remember from your first year? And there was like, I had so many, you know, I was like, oh, like, you know, I remember when that happened and like, this is the mindset that we were in. And like, you know, it's because like we have really like, when it comes to building Array, it's like, we've enjoyed every step of the process. Even when it's been hard, we've been like, no, like we're going to look back on this and like think of like everything that was going on at that time and look back on it kind of fondly. So absolutely. I think it's important. You're so right. So with that, I know we jumped around to number 5 with this gratitude piece, but tell us the other steps when it comes to the manifestation process.
Okay, so my 7-step guide to manifesting is what my book is based on. And the first step is be clear in your vision. So essentially you can't get to where you want to go unless you know where it is you are headed. So this step is really all about gaining clarity on what you want, what goals you have, but most importantly, who you want to become. And I think that that is the most important question of manifesting. It's not what can I have, but who do I want to be? So with this step, I really encourage people to do vision boards at the beginning of their journey, and I give people a step-by-step breakdown on how to do them in the book, and also immerse themselves with things like visualization meditation. So visualization, we know from neuroscience, is like a really powerful practice to help us align our goals. And the way it works is that when we regularly visualize a goal, or we think about something often, we focus our mind on it, the subconscious parts of our brain, which accounts for 95% of our brain's activity, will filter out unwanted information and seek out information that is aligned with those goals. So essentially, we can just prime our brains to help us reach those goals. So that's step one. Step two is remove fear and doubt. And this is the most important step of the whole manifesting process. And this is what really makes manifesting a healing journey and a self-development practice, because the kind of secret of manifesting is that we manifest what we subconsciously believe we are worthy of receiving. So you can think about your dream house, your dream job, your dream partner, all you like. But if you don't really believe you are worthy of receiving it, then you won't be able to bring it into your life. And this is why people can find that they find it much easier to manifest something in one area of their lives, but not in others.
I was actually going to bring this up because I mean, it's really interesting, right? Like, so I've been interested in manifestation, I think, since 2014. So that's when I got really into it. Okay. So this is, I feel like I was a completely different person, but that's kind of when I got into it. And like now, like all of this is like stuff that I like deeply, deeply believe in. And it's really interesting because when I go through clearing certain things, right? Because like we all have areas which are so easy for us. Like for example, for me, relationships are like easy, no problem. Like I have never struggled in like my love life or like relationships with like friends or anything like that. But I don't know, like there's like other things which are harder for me. And it's really interesting because I think a lot of people believe that manifestation is just like, oh, like positive, think through it. That's actually not what you need to do. Like it also means that sometimes you have to go a little bit deeper and like
100%.
You have to like work through shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually that's my second book, Manifest in Action, is really much more focused on that healing journey. But I kind of introduce it in this step too, because you're absolutely right. I think it really is about being willing to kind of understand what is going on for you. What are your patterns of behavior? What are your patterns of thinking? Where are your wounds? What are your traumas? And I think it's so kind of important for us to realize that our past is constantly controlling us. Like it's controlling how we perceive the world around us, how we feel about ourselves, how we interact with other people. You know, it's really creating this kind of like filter through which we're viewing everything. And so it's only when we begin to heal that we can actually free ourselves and allow ourselves the freedom to actually live life as we want to live it. And it's not possible to kind of like create your dream life without actually understanding first how your past is still influencing your behavior. And so this is really just about constant self-awareness. You know, that's the first step of it. And I think that, you know, for me, even now, you know, let's say I just came back from a trip and I felt really anxious for one of the first days I felt in ages, because, you know, I've done a lot of work on my anxiety and I feel in a pretty good place, but I felt really triggered. I didn't feel good. I felt like I was really suddenly really concerned about, you know, do people like me? Am I coming across okay? I was so hyper aware of how everyone was feeling, if they were enjoying the trip. It was but instead of that kind of defeating me or making me feel bad, I used it as a real opportunity to understand myself better. Okay, what's going on here? What's this bringing up? What is new about this situation that is bringing up something that hasn't been worked on yet? You know, and actually in that sense, you're able to meet kind of yourself in these new ways that give you an opportunity to evolve and learn and peel off another layer, you know, of the shit that's been done to us, essentially, so that we can, you know, become more confident and become freer and more empowered in ourselves. And so it's really this constant self-awareness, and then using different like modalities to help you heal. So some of them are the things we can do every day, like using affirmations, changing our language, you know, meditation, journaling. But then there's a whole kind of bigger healing journey you can go on with therapists, counselors, psychologists, hypnotherapists, somatic healers. You know, there are so many different types of healing that you can, healing processes that you can go through to help you uncover what it is that's been holding you back.
And I think that this is such an important part of the conversation that you bring this up, because, you know, I think that this is like, unfortunately, a myth around manifestation, that like people think that, oh, like I'll just like think positive and pretend like that's not an issue, which, I mean, couldn't be further from the truth. And I love that, you know, this is a part of your work and that you are transparent about that process and like that part of things being equally important as like everything else, you know? So, okay, that's step 2. What's next?
Okay. So then step 3 is align your behavior. So align your behavior is all about taking action, forward momentum, you know, doing the things that you need to do to get to where you want to go. And so a lot of this is about stepping aside your comfort zone, taking risks, you know, but it's also about stepping into the character of your future self. So I really love this. And I have this phrase in the book called fake it till you become it. And the idea is that, you know, if we all were to close our eyes, we could all visualize our higher self, our most empowered self. And we can start to think about, what does that version of you feel like? You know, how do they feel within themselves? Likely more confident, more at ease. How do they treat others? And how do they allow others to treat them? What boundaries do they have? How do they spend their day? What do they do in the morning? What's their routines? You know, how are they looking after themselves? And so I think when you think about this future you and you visualize it, and everyone can, if they close their eyes and they think hard, they can really sink into that feeling of their most confident and empowered selves. And then you think, how can I step into that version of myself from today? You know, how can I step into that character? And that can be in changing your routine to align with your future self. It can be thinking, let's say you want to do something that's uncomfortable, and you know, you think it's freaking you out, and you're like, I don't want to do it. I don't know if I'm going to be any good. And you can close your eyes and you think, okay, what would my future self do? Mm-hmm. Would they do this? Would they take this risk? And likely they would. And then you can do it in that character of yourself. It's like having an alter ego. It's a bit like stepping into your Sasha Fierce, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's a really useful tool to use when you're going into situations where you feel nervous. So if you're going on a first date, for example, or you're going into a meeting where you need to ask for a promotion, or you're going out, you know, when I do this when I step on stage for the first time, you know, when I started public speaking, you know, I'd think about, okay, imagine myself walking out confidently. Imagine that everything goes perfectly. Imagine me leaving the stage feeling as like good as I possibly could. And you can use that to kind of like fake it till you become it. And so I really love this step for that.
I couldn't agree more. And something that I do, which I think is like so helpful, is in the morning when I journal. So I journal every day, and I like sometimes go through like the life of like my highest self. So like exactly what I do like in the morning, like throughout the day, because I think as well, when you feel triggered and like, I don't know, like something triggers you, right? And you want to have a snap reaction. I think if you have your highest self in mind, you ask yourself whether like that version of you would take this action that you're just kind of like wanting to take because you're being controlled by your emotions in like a certain situation, you know? Yes, so I think like
I love that.
It just helps you make better decisions, because then you're not, I don't know, if like someone annoys you, you're not just reacting by like getting annoyed. You know what I mean? Like you kind of know how to reel in your emotions and be like, okay, no, like would that version of myself behave this way? No.
I love that. And I love that you brought up decisions, because I often say that your higher self is like your decision maker.
Yes.
So, you know, it's so easy for us to always ask other people to help us make decisions. So I might be like, you know, what should I have for lunch today? Or, you know, maybe bigger problems like, should I break up with my boyfriend? Or should I leave my job? And we often rely on other people to help us make decisions. But actually, you can start to use your higher self as your decision maker. What would they do in this situation? How would they react? Exactly as you're saying. So I really love that.
Another thing which I think is interesting is sometimes like if I'm in like, I don't know, like an emotionally like triggering situation, I like sit down with myself and journal, but like I'm talking to myself like I would my best friend.
I love that.
You know, and like I think the best of you tends to come out when you like think like that, because then you're like giving yourself the advice that you would actually give to a friend, and you're not like, because otherwise I feel like if something triggers us, we just directly think of like the worst case scenario, there's no logic. It's like out the window. You know, you're like, my boss gave me some criticism. Oh, it must mean I'm getting fired. You know what I mean? So like, it's so easy to slip into there unless you like bring that logic. So I think this highest self exercise, I feel like it can be used in so many different scenarios.
100%.
So I personally love that it's like a part of your process and a part of your work because it's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next up.
Okay, so step 4 is overcome tests from the universe. So, by the way, the universe to me is just an energetic force greater than ourselves. To some people, that's God. To some people, it's a spiritual realm. You know, you can name it whatever you like and what works for you. But for me, it's just the universe. And I believe that the universe provides us on our manifesting journey with tests. And the test is there to ask, how worthy do you really think you are of receiving this thing that you want? And so there's kind of 2 parts of this step. One is like really simple, is that, you know, let's say you're trying to manifest meeting a partner, and you've done step 1 and you have,
keep going.
So let's say that you've done step 1 and you've been clear on your vision, you've written down on your vision board exactly what you want to manifest and the qualities of this person, the relationship that they are. And then you've done step 2 and you've really worked on believing that you're worthy of receiving. And then you've done step 3, align your behavior, perhaps by going on dating apps or allowing yourself to be set up by friends. And then you go on a date with someone and it's incredible. And you think, oh my God, it's happened. I've manifested this person. The chemistry is amazing. And then you don't hear from them. And then, 4 or 5 days later, they text you, hey, what's up? This is a test. And the test is, how worthy do you really think you are? Are you going to stay engaging with this person who clearly doesn't give you the kind of respect that you deserve? Or are you able to walk away and say to the universe, I know I'm worth more than this, and create space for the right person to come into your life? And I am sure there are so many people listening right now who are still engaging with people who aren't treating them with the respect they deserve, who are going back to their exes, even though they know it's not right for them. And I know how hard it is, but this is a real opportunity for you to actually say, I'm not going to settle for less than I deserve. And whether it's in relationships or another area of your life, everybody listening can ask themselves, where am I settling? And how can I actually walk away from these things that aren't serving me and create more energetic space for the right things to enter my life? And so this is really about sort of detoxing, I suppose, your life and clearing out. So that's one part of it. The other part is about understanding that, manifesting is about like a whole life process. My 7 steps, I don't dip in and out. It's just the way I govern my life. And that means that I have to account for real life. And real life comes with challenges, rejection, obstacles, and difficult times. But it's actually how you show up to those moments that really determines where you end up. And so every time we're faced with challenge or rejection, you can ask yourself, am I going to let this defeat me? Or am I going to be able to rise above this and take meaning from it and take value from it and actually persevere until you reach the next step? And I think that after every challenge, there is reward. And there's a small exercise in Manifest in Action where I ask people to kind of like think about challenges that they've had and think about the time where they've said to themselves, oh my God, I'm so glad it happened that way. Or the time where there was a reward afterwards, because there always is. There's always, and I think when we talk about positive thinking, there's something called toxic positivity, which is where you feel that you have to be happy all the time. And I think this is just not what manifesting is about, because you have to give yourself space to feel the full spectrum of emotions. And that's like a real human experience. To me, positivity isn't being happy all the time. It's knowing that even on the dark days, better days are coming.
100%.
And this is what this step allows you to do. So now, you remember I just said that I had a really tough day. I wasn't defeated by it. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't like, oh my God, I've gone backwards, or what the fuck, or, I was
mad at yourself.
Yeah.
It's
just okay, what can I learn from this? How can I move forward? Or, I remember at the beginning of this year, I got rejected by a brand that I was so excited for. And I was really hoping to work with them. And they said no. And I was like, okay, fine. Step 4, like, there is something better coming along. And then 6 months later, a brand that I wouldn't have been able to work with if I had worked with them came along with a much better job, better money, less work,
better everything,
but better, like, better everything. And I'm like, there it is. Like, and I really encourage people to look out for that reward and prove it to themselves.
You know, something else, Roxie, that I've realized over the course of my life is that I learn the most when I'm in like a challenging period, you know, like if life is perfect all the time, okay, it's like everything is just like perfect, okay, how are you learning and growing? You know, like we grow, I feel like the most when we're able to overcome a challenge, you know, because I think it just like pushes you as a human being, and it just allows you to kind of develop different skill sets.
Yes.
So like that's kind of how I look at things when I'm going through a challenging period, that like, yes, there's definitely always a reward. And I really do feel like, you know, the universe, like God, there's always a plan. And I agree, like never feel defeated, because I also feel like whatever challenges are put our way or like difficulties, it's because we are in a unique position to handle it, you know? And like,
absolutely.
So why would we let that like bring us down?
Yeah.
But also like, I'm like, okay, like, you know what? Yes, there's probably a reward, but also like I'm just going to be a better human at the end of this.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that, you know, I always say to people who are going through heartbreak, like you'll never just find out more about yourself as you will through this period. Like I think that's where people really reinvent themselves. But I think that, you know, it can be hard for people in this. And I do have like friends of mine who they're like, Roxie, I know I'm going through a test, but it's so hard. Like I can't see it. And I do get that. And I think part of it is you almost have to have this like unwavering faith and trust. And that's actually my step 7. So you start to learn how like all these steps are linked. But, you know, I think for anyone listening who might be currently going through a tough time or challenging time, it really is about reminding yourself that, you know, there is always something great on the other side, and just keep going and don't give up.
Well, I don't want to jump around from the different steps, but I do want to bring this back to your personal story, because I mean, you've been really open about the fact that you've faced some like deep challenges with like depression and substance abuse. And, you know, when someone looks at you and they don't have that context, they think that like, okay, you know, you're this like very successful woman who's built this beautiful life, but I think like you really are the embodiment of this, and of course all of the steps. But can you give people like your background a little bit, just so they know?
Yeah. So I, growing up in Oxford in the UK, as an Iraqi, I definitely felt very much an outsider from my earliest years. So I really started to kind of like reject myself quite early on in life, you know, from those early school years. And by the time the Iraqi war broke out in 2011, you know, Iraqis were really seen as the enemy. You know, Islamophobia was rife.
Yeah.
I was really terribly badly bullied. When I moved schools, I changed my name from Rowan to Roxie because I wanted to come across as less Arabic. I started telling people I was from Jordan instead of Iraq. And really, this was a rejection of who I was. So I was feeling like I didn't fit in at home, but then I was so embarrassed and ashamed of my culture. Feeling like I didn't fit in at school, but then I was so embarrassed and ashamed of my culture at home. So I felt really lost. And throughout my kind of teen years, there was disordered eating. And then by the time I was 18, when I left school, I tried cocaine and I started drinking. And it became a very easy escape for me. And I became very quickly addicted. And by the time I was 21, I went to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting because I had fallen into addiction kind of really quite rapidly. But I didn't actually give up until I was 28. So for those next 6 years, I mean, I just couldn't even tell you what I did with my life. I just was partying, taking drugs, on come downs. It was just horrible. And, you know, there's so much. Obviously I knew I had a problem from 21. So there's also added to that is this, like, it's not even like fun because you know that you've got a problem. So there's a lot of shame attached to it, a lot of regret. I tried giving up multiple times. I couldn't. And, you know, paired with the addiction was, you know, such severe self-loathing and anxiety and depression. I mean, I probably was suffering from depression, I think, since I was at least 12 years old, but I didn't know what it was at the time. I just didn't know. I never knew what it was like to feel happy in my own skin, to like myself, to feel like life was enjoyable or like a safe place to be. And then after hitting rock bottom, is when I kind of called a friend of mine, and she said, "Oh, you should listen to this podcast on manifestation." And I did. And I think it just, something clicked within me, and I realized that I had the power to change my life. And I think that in that moment, what I realized was that I was the one keeping myself stuck. I think I had been in such victim mentality, and actually understanding that I was the one who was keeping myself there, and I was the one who had the power to change it, was a real sort of light bulb moment. And on the 7th of June, it was the 7th of June 2018, that someone called Wade messaged me on a dating app. It was 2 weeks after I'd heard about manifesting. And then a year to the day, on the 7th of June 2019, our baby boy Wolf was born. And I would say that it wasn't like this fairy tale, I met him and then we were like madly in love and we had a baby and I was so happy suddenly. It wasn't. When I was pregnant, I went through the darkest time of my life. I think, they say that you go through like a dark soul of the night. Mm-hmm. That was definitely mine. And because I was still an addict at the time when I found out I was pregnant. So I suddenly had to give up everything all at once. And all the years of pain came rushing out and I had nowhere to escape. And so I turned to food. So I started binge eating. I gained 30 kilos, which I think is like over 70 pounds. I stopped leaving the house. Every day was so overwhelmingly difficult to just keep myself alive and not want to it was just a horrible, horrible time of my life that it's why I have not been pregnant since, because I'm so afraid of going back to, even though I know it would be different, I don't even want to risk it because it was so traumatic.
Yeah.
But what happened was that, and I really believe this is a gift from the universe, is 1 week before I found out I was pregnant, I started something on my Instagram called Agni Aunt Sundays, where every Sunday I would give people advice. And I don't really know why I had decided to do it, but I'd always loved giving people advice and it was just something I enjoyed. And every Sunday during my pregnancy, I would help other people. And that helping others became like this beacon of light for me and hope and purpose. And that's when I knew that I was going to make it my life's mission, I suppose, to help empower others and use my own experiences to do that. And throughout the pregnancy, because I was literally not doing anything else, I just immersed myself in reading books, listening to podcasts, like researching everything I could. And I had decided I wanted to be an inspirational speaker and that I wanted to motivate people. So when Wolf was born, I decided to get myself together. I changed my diet, my lifestyle. I got healthy so I could feel good first and foremost, because I think it's so important. And then when he was 5 months old, I hosted my first ever workshop. It was like in an old church that I paid £200 for. 100 people came. I had like balloons everywhere. I had, there was like a tiny like cubby hole curtain where Wade hid behind it and press play on the iPad when I needed music. It was so funny. I posted about it recently. And then fast forward to 3 years later, I was doing 2,000 people at Alexandra Palace. So it was then a very quick journey of transformation, but it took a while to get there.
It's so interesting because I think a lot of people probably do relate to you because you've had this tough journey, like you really are kind of a product of your own work, it didn't come easy to you and yet here you are. And like, also I think it's proof that you can go from like one identity to almost like another one. And, like that right now, if someone looks at you, they can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and I get that. Even my friends now, and when I speak to my team and they like hear me tell these stories, they're like, I can't even imagine. And I'm like, my God, if you knew me, like would not go home. Like you could not get me to sleep. All I wanted to do was party. And now I can like But I'm barely ever awake past 9 p.m.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's like hope, I think, for everyone that no matter what part of your life that you want to change, it's definitely possible.
Definitely. And also that it can start at any time. You know, I was probably not till I was 30 did I begin to like change my life. And, you know, I think people think that by 30 you're supposed to have figured it out. But I think that's just the beginning.
Which, by the way, I think is a myth. Because I'm like, in your 20s, you're just like, I remember when I graduated from college, there was this, like, I had this pressure that like, oh, I'm supposed to know exactly what to do now. And I was like, I have never felt more lost in my life, you know? So I feel like, you know, you're so right that like, it's never too late to figure it out. It's never too late to like change your life, you know? So yeah, like, I think it's a good like sign for everyone else who's like maybe feeling that way, that like you change things like at 30, which is, I mean, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your time will come.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to have some time for audience questions because we got a lot of them.
Amazing.
Okay, so let's see here. What is the key ingredient to manifesting effortlessly that is often overlooked, if there is one?
Oh, I think self-worth is one, and the other is surrender. So I would say that, you know, my gold dust on the whole manifesting process is my step 7, trust in the universe. And this is about being able to know what you want and then let it go. And I think this is, you know, when I was talking earlier about people getting obsessed with their goals, this is like part of that. And so for me, like, I can manifest really powerfully, you know, I feel really in my flow. And if I was to really think about what my like gold dust was, it's that I don't emotionally attach to the outcome. So if I know I want something, I don't become obsessed with it. I don't think I'll be happy when. I'm just like, yeah, that's going to be fucking great when it happens.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's the
secret
magic,
sauce.
Yeah.
Wait, also, what was step 6? Because we didn't even get there. We like jumped.
You can read the book. No, step 6 is turn envy into inspiration.
Love that.
So yeah, that's all about just going again from that scarcity mindset into that more abundant and inspired mindset, and even taking it a step further and really celebrating others, seeking to be inspired. And there's lots of tips on how to kind of like help you change and recognize your envy, and actually being not ashamed of that feeling, but actually allowing it to show you what still needs healing or what you want more of in your life.
I love that. Okay, another question that we have is, this person has been trying to manifest a new job but hasn't had any success. Any tips?
I think that, you know, whenever there is a block, I think it's just like with anything that you're wanting to manifest, go through those 7 steps. Have you got complete clarity on the kind of job you're actually looking for? You know, how much money you want to make, what the relationships are like with your colleagues, what your boss is like, what your kind of hours are like, being really specific with the exact job that you're looking for and what you think will give you the most fulfillment and purpose. Step 2 is like, are you making sure that you really feel worthy of the position you're going for? And if not, how can you work on that healing journey? Step 3 is align your behavior. Are you going out as much as you can? Are you looking? Are you asking friends? Are you telling people? Are you acting like the person that you want to become in that role? You know, are you showing up as that person and embodying that version of you? And then with step 4, if you're getting rejected from interviews, are you allowing that to defeat you and destroy your confidence? Or are you able to say, no, I know the right thing is coming, and actually stay in that powerful position? You know, really so much of this is about the energy and the intention you put behind things. And then are you able to actually be grateful in what you have, in the position that you're in? You know, even if right now it might feel hopeless, where can you find gratitude, you know, for even maybe for being grateful for the endless opportunities that might be ahead of you, you know, or grateful for the other things in your life that you do have, and knowing that this might just be the final bit of the puzzle, but everything else is good right now. And then how can you turn envy into inspiration? Are you looking to your friends who have jobs, or looking to other people, and is that feeling of envy actually lowering your vibration and bringing you down? And can you turn that into inspiration? And then can you bring that element of trust and surrender to it?
I love that. I mean, you literally gave someone a manual on how to get a new job. So A lot of people want to know any wellness routines that you have.
Oh, yes. So, I think for me, a wellness routine is basically just making sure that you're incorporating a few things in the morning and a few things in the evening that help you kind of like bookend your day. I call it bookending my day. So in the morning, for example, I am a huge supplement fan. Like I just swear by them. Which I know you are as well. So supplement, morning affirmations as soon as I wake up. I've just created this manifest daily journal, which I am obsessed with. So I do it every morning. And in there, I've got like my affirmation of the day. It's the first thing I do in the morning. Affirmation of the day, an action list. And then I have a motivational message from my higher self. So I loved putting this in the journal. And it's a bit like what you said earlier about how, you give yourself advice or like speak to yourself like your friend would. It's where you can do that for yourself every morning and give yourself what kind of like boost you need every day. So I do that. Look, to be honest, I've been shite with my exercise. I don't do any, so I'm not even going to pretend that I do some morning workout. I don't. I then basically, I have my supplements, I do my journal, I say my affirmation, and then I have my coffee, I get my son ready for school, that's it. And then in the evening, I do try and do at least, 5 minutes of meditation. I used to do it in the morning, but at the moment I'm just finding myself too rushed. So I've changed that to the evening. I think meditation or breath work is just an absolute game changer. And that's it. It's nothing. I really enjoy looking after myself. I enjoy eating well. I enjoy getting fresh air when I can. It's much harder in the winter here now, but I don't think even, when it comes to wellness, I don't think it's about having like a perfect routine every day. I don't think it's about having to do like a million things a day. I think it's just doing things that genuinely make you feel good and that you can actually commit to.
I completely agree. I think it needs to be sustainable. And I think you also have to be flexible, like I remember when I first got started in like wellness and like, like really wanting to do good for myself. I felt like I was so dogmatic. And then I would put a lot of pressure on myself if I like missed one of the things in my routine. And then I was like, this is just like raising cortisol. Yeah. Like, I feel like I'm doing more harm than good here.
Sometimes you have to catch yourself and you're like, oh my God, why am I putting so much pressure on myself? Just relax.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that deep. It's my favorite thing. It's this girl, Jen, who was on my team. She's in Australia now. We miss her. But she used to always say that to me. She's like, it's just not that deep. And I'm like, it's such a good mindset.
No, it really, and I really do feel like, it's funny because we implement wellness practices to feel well, but at the same time, like if we put so much pressure on ourselves, I'm like, no, like, dude, just
absolutely
relax.
Yeah.
Get to the things that you can, and like I have certain non-negotiables, but those are
what are your non-negotiables?
Journaling.
Yeah.
Every day for 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like it just allows me to be really self-aware.
Yeah.
And then my walk in the morning as well. So like, even if it's like 10 minutes, I'll still like go outside. And to be fair, I live in LA. Nice. So I can get in the 10-minute walk even no matter the time of year. But I feel like those are my two morning non-negotiables. And then evening, I have like a strict time of when I put my phone away.
Yeah. And it makes such a difference to your sleep.
Huge.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, it's like changed my life. And then I read before bed. So I feel like those are my two non-negotiables for evening.
Love that.
Yeah, it's like my happy time. Okay, so the last question that I have is actually from someone who said that they are reading your book. Advice on wanting to begin the manifestation process, but you're burnt out.
Oh, I think it's remembering that the manifestation process isn't something that you need to do that's exhausting. It's something that's going to enrich your life and empower you and make you feel better and more motivated. But yes, if you are burnt out, sometimes the first thing to do is just take a step back and reset. So, if you like, continue reading the book, I would. But also just schedule in rest, start saying no, set some boundaries. I think especially, going into a new year is a really good time for that. It's just like reassessing your life and what's draining you and what's invigorating you. And I think even just being able to recognize burnout and do something about it. I think it's just really important that, if we see something in ourselves, and I don't mean this to sound like harsh, but it's to me as well. Like if I'm complaining, I'm so tired, I'm so burned out, like, okay, well fucking do something about it.
Yes.
Because it won't do it itself. So it's like you've got to be stricter with boundaries and letting people down sometimes, because sometimes we do have to let people down to look after ourselves so that we can give more to them later.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Roxie, this has been amazing.
Thank you so much.
Tell everyone where they can find you, what your books are for anyone who wants to look into them. Tell us everything.
Yes. I'm on Instagram, Roxie Nafousi. My book, Manifest 7 Steps to Living Your Best Life and Manifest in Action, are in Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, all the big retailers. And my new podcast, Rise with Roxie, is out now, where I speak to guests like Jay Shetty and Tali Sharo and lots of amazing self-development experts who can also, and hopefully those conversations will also inspire you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.